In the next scene, we see when the protagonist arrives home with her mother, and as good gossips, Yeondu's brother, along with her uncle, tell Bongnim that they had already seen Sejin before and about the proposal the woman had made to the protagonist, which leaves Bongnim shocked at the secretary's audacity. And when the scene changes, we see Taekyung telling his mother about Sejin's lie about being sterile, and once again, we see another person surprised at how malicious this secretary can be. However, on Inok's side, she will have to be strong to protect her son's family, because when she got home and went to talk to Madam Moon, we see that the lady threw a pillow at Taekyung's mother. Meanwhile, the man was called to take a walk with Chon-sik, who took him to Sejin's house. The gentleman just wanted Taekyung to apologize to the family of the woman he humiliated at the altar. However, at that moment, everyone could see another side of Sejin, as she simply freaked out, saying she wouldn't let the man ruin their relationship, and it took her father saying it was over for her to go to her room. Chon-sik took this action so that Taekyung could move forward with the marriage to the protagonist and also to calm his wife's heart a little. The next day, the mothers of the couple met because Inok had the idea of the two living in the newlywed annex at the family mansion. She believes Madam Moon will back down a bit, and despite being anxious, Bongnim agrees it might be a good idea, especially after both learn about Sejin's other lies and how cunning this woman is. Later, the two go to the registry office to look for the couple, as the day before, they had mentioned they would register the marriage just to reassure them, which would obviously be a farce, but now with both there, they will have to find another way out. So, the two start a fake fight so that the two ladies get distracted and can get out of this situation, which works for now. Meanwhile, Sejin's mother went to Madam Moon's house again, and there, the lady made another scene, demanding that the family pay her more money or give her a bigger apartment to compensate for the shame her daughter went through because of Taekyung. And Sejin had to drag her out of the place, which was very embarrassing, and now she risks not even having Madam Moon on her side anymore. Back to the main couple, the mothers brought the two together and made them apologize to each other. Afterward, the ladies dropped the marriage registration story but asked that they at least move to the family annex, and since they would have to find a place to pretend they were living together, even knowing the burden it would be to deal with Madam Moon, the two agreed. Later, we see when Inok breaks the news about the couple moving to the annex to Madam Moon, and as expected, the lady already started her drama by saying she wouldn't eat anymore as a protest, so to go along with her, Inok said she would do the same. Now the rest of the family is starting to blame Yeondu and Taekyung for Madam Moon's tantrum, so the lady's grandchildren decided they should convince the protagonist not to move to the annex, thus arranging to meet Yeondu at an establishment. Meanwhile, Sejin packs her belongings at the company into a box and leaves a resignation letter on Chon-sik's desk. Now back to the protagonist, we see that she answered all the questions asked of her very well, but even so, Taekyung's family managed to twist every word that came out of Yeondu's mouth. Luckily, the man arrived shortly to save her from this interrogation, so the meeting didn't last much longer. And the next day, when Taekyung went to pick up the protagonist and her things for her to move to the annex, we see that everyone in her family had red eyes because it was a difficult night, and they cried a lot at her farewell. Now Madam Moon has started eating again and seems more comfortable with the new couple's arrival at the residence. However, when Yeondu is brought to the lady, we see that she simply freaked out and started throwing salt at the protagonist. But the protagonist didn't fall for Madam Moon's game, and even all dirty, she remained calm and just asked Inok not to argue with the lady. After all, it's good news for the couple when they heard Madam Moon say that they couldn't enter that house without being invited. Taekyung presents some rules to Yeondu as soon as she settles in the annex, and on the first day, we can already see that they will maintain an individual life when others aren't watching. For example, each will wash their own dishes and they will sleep in separate rooms. The next day, we see Sejin's mother getting involved in another mess. She met with the guys she owes money to and arranged that as soon as the remaining money from the apartment her daughter received is transferred, she will pass everything to them to reduce her debt. Meanwhile, Chonsik called Se-jin to the company, and since he still has affection for her for being his employee for many years, the man offered her a position in the company in the United States, and Se-jin said she would get back to him. Back to the protagonist. In the main house, the women have already started preparations for the death anniversary of the family's grandfather, Madam Moon's ex-husband. Acting smart, when left alone, Soo-jong took her tasks to Yeon-do to do, even though the couple wasn't invited to participate. At the same time, Yoo-myung received a message from her ex-boyfriend Jae, saying he was returning to the United States and would send her things back as soon as he arrived. At that moment, nostalgia hit the girl for her past relationship, so she went to the airport to see if she could find him, but she arrived too late, so Yoo-myung accepted that this was the end of the couple and just replied that he could throw her things away. While typing on her phone, the girl bumped into Junha, and speaking of him, before boarding, the man sent a message to Yeon-do saying he was leaving the country. But since her phone was near the meddlesome Soo-jong, the woman ended up reading the message and threatened Yeon-do to tell the rest of the family. So at this moment, the protagonist had to make a scene so the woman wouldn't ruin her and Taekyung's plan. Well, in the end, the work Yeon-do did was highly praised by Madam Moon. However, the lady didn't know who really prepared it because Soo-jong lied, saying she did everything herself. And the little viper doesn't stop there. She tricked Yeon-do into getting ready for the tea ceremony, so Yeon-do showed up at Madam Moon's house just when her friends were there talking about what happened at the wedding, and as we know, chaos ensued. In-ok was very disappointed with Soo-jong when she found out what she did, and even so, the blame fell on Yeon-do. The next day, Ji-myung was supposed to have surgery to remove the baby, and at the last second, Hyun-woo decided to go to the hospital where she was having the procedure to try to stop her. However, at the location, Dr. Cha was surprised to find his ex-wife outside the recovery room, and she told him she didn't have the courage to go through with the procedure. Now the couple doesn't know how to proceed with their relationship, as having the child is something they share in common, as well as continuing with the divorce, but neither wants the baby to grow up without a mother or father. Meanwhile, after Soo-jong and Chun-myung convinced Madam Moon that Yeon-do should be punished by preparing the food for the grandfather's death anniversary, we see the protagonist giving her best in the kitchen. Later, we suddenly see Taekyung arriving angrily and taking Yeon-do out of the place. He argues with her for getting involved with his family again, as the day before, he had made it clear for her to ignore them, so there wouldn't be more fights between them or plans from others to make Madam Moon blame them for something. Their argument didn't last long because Taekyung knows very well how meddlesome his family is, and to resolve Yeon-do's issue, he offered to cook the protagonist's part himself. Of course, Madam Moon was bothered by this, but when Chonsik arrived, he decided that since Taekyung was involved in preparing the food for the death anniversary, he should also attend the ceremony. And now, my friends, I think the lady might have a heart attack because the last thing she wanted was for Taekyung to participate as a member of the Gong family. Seeing Taekyung with the others made Madam Moon start crying, but Chonsik stood firm in his decision, and later, he thanked Taekyung for participating and promised to be more persistent in making his mother change her mind. Meanwhile, Yeon-do was returning to the annex when she overheard Hyun-woo and Ji-myung arguing about the divorce. As the protagonist's phone buzzed at that moment, they realized she must have heard something, so they asked Yeon-do to keep her mouth shut. And now we have a nickname for the baby, which will be real. I just hope that's not his actual name. The next day, two men showed up at Jang Ho's school to present the contract his wife offered in place of the debt, but it turns out the duo wants more money. Jang Ho promised to pay them if they returned the contract. However, since they didn't, he grabbed the paper from their hands and tore it up. At that moment, the men became furious and started breaking things in the place, but the ladies who are Jang Ho's students wouldn't let these thuggish-looking men hurt the school director. Leading a group, Bang Nim appeared in the room with her colleagues, holding brooms or anything that could be used to scare them away. Meanwhile, Yeon-do and Taekyung were on their way to meet Chonsik at the family company when they ran into Se-jin in the elevator. Once again, the woman made malicious comments intending to affect them, but Taekyung didn't let it slide and took her outside. There, he made it clear to Sejin to know her place and that the little guilt he felt for what he did to her was diminishing with her actions. Later, before Taekyung and Yeondu met with Chonsik, Sejin entered the office first and accepted the position the gentleman had offered. She also lied once again, saying that Taekyung raised his voice while they were in the elevator and laughed with his wife just to upset her. But it seems this time Chonsik didn't fall for Sejin's tales, and during lunch with Taekyung and his daughter-in-law, he only asked them to be kind until Sejin left. The gentleman also mentioned that whatever Yeondu wants, he will pay to ensure his first grandchild is comfortable. Now moving to Dongwook, once again Yoo Myung appeared at his workplace, commenting on how he resembles her ex. So, in case the girl is interested, the man makes it clear that he has a daughter and doesn't want to get involved at the moment. But since Yoo Myung seemed not to believe him, Dongwook pretended to call the police to accuse her of stalking, and thus, the girl left. In the next scene, we see that the day has come to finalize Dr. Cha's divorce from his wife, and since the man didn't show up to sign the papers, Ji Myung called to find out where he was. However, it was his sister-in-law who answered, alone in Hyunwoo's office. She was there waiting for him to return to discuss his health after losing the baby, and at this moment, Soo-jong is another person who learned one of the couple's secrets. And it didn't remain a secret for long, as the woman went straight to tell Madam Eun and In-ok, then her husband was the next to know. Since Soo-jong asked them not to let Ji Myung know she was the one who told, I'm sure this blame will fall on the protagonist. Meanwhile, Ji Myung went to the clinic to find out why Hyunwoo didn't show up to sign the papers, and at that moment, the man makes her a proposal, that they not go down this path for now. Dr. Cha believes they can have a co-parenting relationship with the child without being involved as a couple, so both would be single to pursue other relationships but continue as good, present, and active parents in the baby's life. But if the pair concludes it won't work, Hyunwoo says they can revisit the idea of divorce later. And Ji Myung ends up agreeing with this idea because they were then called to the family house, and when they arrived, it was an intervention about their divorce. To escape this mess, the woman decided to come clean, saying they weren't getting divorced but rather having a baby. And of course, everyone was happy with the news, except for Soo-jong and her husband, who were hoping for the couple's disaster so they could be the future heirs of the family company. After everything calmed down, Ji Myung went to the protagonist, as I had predicted, and started accusing her of telling everyone. The woman was a bit cruel with her words, even saying that Yeondu was an unwelcome guest in the family house, and since Ji Myung wanted to be like that, the protagonist decided to take the blame. However, Taekyung was arriving at that moment and heard everything. He didn't stay quiet and immediately asked his sister to apologize because even he didn't know about the incident, and since Yeondu wasn't one to talk about others' lives, Ji Myung should retract everything she said. Since the woman couldn't do that, Hyunwoo apologized to the couple and took her away. Later, we see that Taekyung took the protagonist to a surprise that her family had prepared for her birthday, and this was a moment of peace for Yeondu amid so much confusion. Meanwhile, Sejin was at Madam Eun's house, and she received money from the lady, which was the remaining amount for the apartment. When it was time to leave, instead of leaving, she decided to go to the annex since she still had the key, and there, rummaging through Yeondu's things, Sejin found a task list indicating that the protagonist would be living alone in 3 months. Knowing the two could return at any moment, Sejin left a pair of her earrings in a closet and then hid in another part of the house because when she was heading to the door, the couple arrived. As a birthday gift, Taekyung gave Yeondu an accessory that she and the baby could use together. And as soon as she had the chance, Sejin left the residence without being seen. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me out. Until next time.